Let's go. Let's go to your place.
Upstairs?
Meet Jim Roberts, a man who turned his unique childhood experiences into a thriving career. As a kid, Jim wrestled with feeling different. His artistic talents and sensitivity often made him stand out, but once what made him self conscious became his greatest strength.
I was born downstairs from my grandparents in New Bedford, Massachusetts. My grandparents were very wonderful. I loved them. I had three sisters, a brother, and a stepbrother. My mother died and my father remarried, and the woman he married had a stepson the same age as me, but he was like 6'7", but he was a really nice guy. My father worked at a place called Misfit Drill, and he wanted to get a better job, and he took up drafting. And I was fascinated by like the T squares and like the drawing board and stuff like that. And he made me my first desk at 5. And there's a picture of me drawing at the desk that he made me, like at 5 years old, and I would be drawing. And I had I don't know, somehow I was talented and I could draw and paint. He like he would like make things. He made this thing right here in front of me, right behind you, the desk. He made my bed. He made that like that's supposed to be a spice rack. So he was very talented as far as making woodwork and stuff like that. And I was very fascinated, so I would help him do all this stuff. And then and like when I went to school and like I had the natural ability to be able to draw and paint and uh, all my fellow students would gather around my desk and watch me draw and paint because I could do it. And I was totally embarrassed by it because I didn't want to be different from anyone else. I wanted to be normal. I was good at art and stuff like that. I wasn't good at sports as well as they were. I mean, I could, bat the ball and do stuff like that and run around the bases. But like my talent was art.
So because that talent was not common, that made her somehow weird, right? And didn't want to feel weird.
Okay. I studied art therapy at BU, and the professor at BU invited me to her studio, and I would go there and paint at her studio. And her husband did jewelry, and he taught me to do jewelry. They didn't have any sons; they had one daughter, and they treated me like their son. And I learned to do art, and I learned to do like jewelry, and it was a very wonderful experience.
What made you choose therapy at the time?
I wanted to help. I wanted to, help children and adolescents and stuff like that to like find their way. What I will say is that working that way and working at a children's hospital and going with the other therapists and talking about what progress I was making and like this, you got him to say that. And I said, yeah. I just asked me to tell me about your drawing, and like the kids were very relaxed and me not being threatening or like too aggressive with asking them to expose what their feelings were and all that stuff and tell me about your drawing, and that was very relaxing for them to explore it that way. And so that like brought a lot out. And then when I went to the like in the sessions with the other therapists, and I said, oh, and he told me this, he told me that, you got him to say that. And I said, well, I just asked him to tell me about your drawing.
And summarize, what is art therapy exactly?
Using art has an expression that like you ask what the child or patient that is working with you, tell me about your drawing. And they would be so happy to explain what they drew and like what it was all about. And they were very excited to explain to you what they drew. I was totally embarrassed by my sensitivity because like I was so sensitive and I didn't think that was a good thing, that how sensitive I was. And then as I grew, like, and became like older and like became a, like an art therapist and stuff like that, I realized that it was actually an attribute. But it took me a long time to realize that. When you're an adolescent and a teenager and a young person, it was progression that you realize that, okay, yes, it is an attribute, but it took a while. To be honest with you, my art professor um, totally helped me out a lot with that. She made me realize that, like, okay, like you have a talent that other people don't have. Like that, like, you can get a little more out of like your clients by just talking about it and asking them to like say, tell me about how you're feeling, and going from that aspect rather than telling, oh, what's going on with your life. Tell me how you're feeling. It made a big difference in their response, because they could talk about that more so than what was actually going on in their life, because it was too sensitive to them, that they were and hard for them to talk about. So just tell me how you're feeling. Oh, because they could relate to that. They could say, "This is how I'm feeling," and then they eventually got to talk about, okay, how that feeling, like and what created that feeling. Well, that was actually a very encouraging turning point.
Good. Now, how did you feel about helping people?
It's like one of the most rewarding things in my life. You're making a difference and making like more of a positive impact. I say, like, what some people might think is weird is actually an attribute, that you have talents that other people don't have, and they might think they're weird. They are actually positives.